Okay, so I don't usually like to start out on negative notes. Drive home reviews, we always try to be, an escape, especially in times like this. Forgotten Gems is there to try to help me through and, to try to help the viewers through. Give you something else to think about, some other movies to watch. But I think I gotta get up on my soapbox for just a minute, if you'll indulge me. I believe it's prudent, kind of in a, 5 steps removed kind of way to today's topic. So anybody who's somewhat conscious knows that the world is just gone to shit lately, and partially due to the complete idiocy of many of the people in it. You can't scroll through any kind of your news feed on any social media right now without coming across some article about some conspiracy theorist, or worse yet, some protesters, which I don't even like using that word for them, and I'll explain why in a second, outside whatever state legislature they happen to reside in, protesting, the stay-at-home order because it's against their civil liberties because they need a haircut. Let me tell you something. Let me show you something, actually. You see this? Do you? Let me lay some facts out for you here, folks. For those who don't know, I am Italian by heritage. Okay? Meaning, my hair is very thick. Moreover, my hair grows incredibly quickly. Even at this age, my hair grows very fast. More to the point, unlike your Jason Momoas or your Clay Matthews or your Chris Hemsworths, when my hair grows, it does not grow down into these luscious, long romance novel ponytails. My hair grows out into what my mother affectionately refers to as the Italian slur fro. I'm not going to say the term, though I do enjoy using it. I'm not going to say here. Another fun fact about the Italian slur fro. Okay, I don't know if you can see how curly my hair is. I love my curly hair. A lot of people love my curly hair. But the problem with my curly hair is that when it curls and curls up, and I nuzzle my head down on my pillow to go to sleep, the curls are bending the wrong way and pressing up against my head. What I'm trying to get at is that my hair physically hurts. Okay? And I am not exaggerating. My hair, when it gets to a certain length, it fucking hurts. Never mind the fact that we're getting into the hot season down here and my head is sweating. And if I'm wearing a ball cap or something, it's building up the sweat and everything and it itches like crazy. The point I'm trying to make here is that my head is physically uncomfortable and in pain. And yet, I am not out protesting, demanding the need for a haircut. And do you understand why I'm not doing that? Because you don't need a haircut to fucking live! I can guarantee you, limited as my medical knowledge is to the fact that I've watched Scrubs and House and a few seasons of ER and MASH, I can pretty much guarantee you at no point in medical history have they wheeled a body into the coroner's office and gone, "What'd she die of, doc?" She didn't get her roots touched up. To you people, I have this simple message. You want to go back to your weight room? You've got it. It's called your house, ass face. Get in it and wait like the rest of us. You narcissistic assholes. And what makes this even worse, what makes the gall of these people even worse is they are convinced fully without a shadow of a doubt that they are doing God's work, that they are great American heroes. So not only does that speak to the narcissism and the delusional aspect of these human beings, which again, I use that term loosely, but it is a direct spit in the face to every protest movement that has ever tried to make real social change in this country. The protests to end the Vietnam War, the suffrage movement to give women the right to vote, the pride rallies for the LGBTQ community, and of course, the civil rights movement. And these are just to name a few. You dare consider yourself a hero when those people stood up not only for what was right, but risked their lives doing it, knowing full well that by standing up and trying to affect real change was going to literally put them in the crosshairs of psychos. Odds are the same psychos who are related to these people out protesting their precious fucking haircuts. Those were real heroes. You are an asshole. You see the difference? And you know, sometimes you can bitch and moan about movies and movies based on historical fact. I do it. But the simple fact is, sometimes a movie comes along that shines a light on a story that you were completely ignorant of. And regardless of if they got the facts right, regardless of, if everything happened exactly as it's shown, you are educated by this film. And for me, that is what happened with 1996's Ghosts of Mississippi. This is an incredibly powerful movie. I remember how moved I was by it when I watched it in the theater the first time, and how moved I am by it every fucking time I watch it. It is a fantastic movie, and one that especially now puts even more shame on these assholes out there protesting. So, let's talk about this. So, what is this movie about? So, this movie tells the story. I think it's very telling, first off. Most movies based on a historical event or real people will say in the opening or the closing, based on a true story. Look at the wording, based on a true story. This one, right after the credits, it says this story is true. And I've done limited research on it, so I can't speak to everything, but I know a lot of it is. They went fact by fact almost. It's pretty damn accurate. So what is this movie about? Well, this movie tells the story of a civil rights leader from Mississippi by the name of Medgar Evans, who one night was assassinated. He was gunned down in his driveway by a Klansman by the name of Byron D. LeBeckwith. Naturally, being the 60s and being the South, he got away with it. They had 2 trials. Both of them were mistrials. And he basically went on and lived his life laughing in the face of everybody, including Medgar Evers' widow. Flash forward 20 years to the late 80s and going into the 90s, the case is picked up again with, from pressure from Medgar Evers' widow and family by the Mississippi State DA's office, and they actually start investigating, and they pursue, and spoiler alert, they get the conviction on this guy and finally send him to jail. And this movie is telling the story of that process. James Woods plays Byron D. LeBeckwith. Whoopi Goldberg is Medgar Evers' widow. Marley Evans, I think they say. And Alec Baldwin is Bobby DeLauder, the Mississippi lawyer who is pursuing the case. So as I said in the beginning, this is an incredibly powerful movie. And moreover, it's difficult. A movie can be really powerful and really affect you. A movie can be really good and entertain you. But it's harder than you might think for a movie to be both. This movie is both incredibly educational, incredibly moving, and incredibly entertaining. You can watch it on almost any level. Educational. I will admit, I had no idea who Medgar Evers was until I saw this movie. We all have heard of Martin Luther King Jr. We've all heard of Malcolm X. We know what happened to them. But I had never heard of this gentleman and the work he did or what happened to him. So the movie, I was really young when the actual events happened. So of the trial and all that. So I paid no attention. So hearing this story and the kind of steps they had to go to kind of rebuild this case, when half of the witnesses or people who testified in the original trial were dead, when most of the evidence was missing, when or had been completely botched or deliberately botched the first time, breaking down, alibis, getting actual confessions because the fucker shot his mouth off at Klan rallies about it, so they had confessions of him, getting all this back together. It also has some of those moments, again, talking about the historical part of it, that are just so weird. For instance, one of the big things they were missing was the actual gun, because it went missing after the first two trials, because apparently back then, people would take evidence home as souvenirs, which is sick in of itself when you think about it. And apparently this is true. They found the gun. Bobby DeLauder's former father-in-law, the father of his ex-wife, who had passed on, was a judge, and he had taken the gun. So Bobby DeLauder found the gun in his father-in-law's study. They had either misplaced or didn't do an autopsy report. I can't remember which one on him. So they got permission from the family. They exhumed the body to do an autopsy. And apparently, even with it being 20-some years later, the body was almost in perfect condition. Like it was waiting for them to come and find the bullet. It's amazing stuff. Just kind of everything that had to come together in this. So yeah, historically and all that, incredibly fascinating. But also very entertaining and incredibly well acted. They have some great performances in this movie. I've never been a huge Alec Baldwin fan. I don't hate him, but I've never been one to go, oh, Alec Baldwin, yay, But I think he does a pretty good job here, despite his ridiculous, overblown Southern accent. I find that is becoming another theme here on Forgotten Gems. A lot of movies with a lot of people doing really bad Southern accents. He's kept expecting Daniel Craig to walk in on it. Anyway, but he's pretty good here, and pretty good as the, not just our main character, but our audience POV character. I talked about this a bit with the Pleasantville review, and the concept of somebody who is of the ruling class or the upper class in any kind of society, suddenly looking around and realizing just how many injustices there actually are in that society. This film drew some criticism when it was released that it's telling the story through the white lawyer's point of view. And maybe this is coming from a white person. So if I'm being ignorant here, I do apologize. But I actually think it was the right choice, because through his eyes, and again, this is somebody who is a member not only of the social ruling class, but of the social upper class. He's a fairly successful Southern lawyer. He's got ties to country clubs and all of this shit. So a movie wherein this character, who is fairly privileged and has never, and understands civil rights kind of from an academic standpoint, it's like a lot of us do, actually starting to be dragged down, not dragged down, that's the wrong word, but actually now being forced into the middle of it and actually seeing what it actually looks like. What, you can say, oh, I'm not prejudiced, oh, all this and that, or I'm enlightened or woke or whatever, but unless you're actually, down in the trenches with the people fighting the battle, you don't really see how, I don't want to say ignorant, because I don't think people do it out of ignorance. I think it's just out of complacency. You're used to it. It's the way the world has always worked. It's always worked in your favor, so why would you question it? That's just natural. I think anybody would be in that situation. So having the story come through his eyes and seeing that he actually goes through a change. He was always a decent person, but actually seeing that he has fundamentally changed in his belief system and the way he looks at the world is, I think, a much more powerful audience POV character. Whoopi Goldberg is, of course, phenomenal in this, and just so poised and so powerful and so proud. What a presence she is. What a phenomenal actor she is. Interesting, just kind of talking about the actors in this. Several of the characters, for instance, Meg Rivers' children, several of them actually play themselves in the movie. So I think that's a pretty big stamp of approval. They're willing to play themselves in the film. James Woods, of course, is our redneck asshole. You hate to give it credit, but he's good. I don't hate to give credit because it's James Woods, but you don't want to give any kind of credit to a fucker like this. And when you see him and the guy he's playing, the guy was like the worst of the fucking worst. This isn't somebody throwing the N-word around because they think it's going to shock you. This is someone who fundamentally believes this horse shit. And just how dangerous a human being like that is. This is something I was thinking about. Talking about inadequacies in the world. James Woods was the only person from this movie nominated for an Oscar. He didn't win. I forget who won that year, but I know he was nominated. And I was wondering something as I was watching this movie, as I'm now much older than I was when I originally saw it, because when you're young, 95, I was in high school, or 96, I should say, I was in high school, about to graduate. I knew I wanted to pursue theater and acting and all that. When you're that age, you think to yourself, well, hell, I want an Oscar. That's what everybody wants. You want that award. Honestly, now, being older, if I was playing that part, and I've played some pretty bad people in my career. I've played wife-beating child molesters, so I know a little something about playing really, really bad human beings, but never somebody based on an actual, real, live piece of shit. If I had been nominated for that, for playing that guy, I honestly would like to believe that I would say, no thank you, do not nominate me for this. Do not nominate me for playing this ass. Don't give any more, even if it's in a once, twice, 3 times a lady removed way of giving any kind of attention or praise to this person. Don't do it. Don't nominate me. Nominate someone else, and I'm not going to show up. I'm not going to do it. He's good. You hate him. You hate him. So he does his job, and he's doing the big Southern, right here down, boy, right over here. He's doing that really big, but it's very good. The makeup they put on him is phenomenal. But how good he is because you really hate him. You really hate the motherfucker, as well you should. Some other great performances. Go to William H. Macy is kind of the comical investigator who's helping Alec Baldwin look into it. Another funny one of a non-actor actor. Another investigator who's helping them is played by a guy named Ben Bennett, who's called Benny Bennett in the movie. He is essentially playing himself. Ben Bennett is an actual cop who, I believe, if I remember the research I did correctly, he was an advisor on the film. And Rob Reiner, who directed the movie, liked him so much, and the other actors liked him so much, he wrote a part in for him. To basically, again, playing a character who's basically himself. And from that, because William H. Macy liked him and liked working with him, William H. Macy wrote him in to several movies that he did after this. So yeah, and he does a good job. He's really, and things like that. That character, again, Meg Rivers' children actually playing themselves, it lends a real air of authenticity to this film. This film doesn't feel like your traditional biopic or historical retelling. I'm not going to say it's filmed almost like a documentary, but I don't know. It feels a little bit more accurate and a little bit more honest. It's not worried about big performances and all that to get its point across. It's just telling the story. I got to talk about best scene in the movie. This is a great movie, great drama, very intriguing, but I got to talk about probably the best scene in the movie to me. So as they're getting ready for the trial, they find out that Meg Rivers' older brother, played by Bill Cobbs, is not going to go to the trial. And apparently he didn't go to the other two trials either. So Alec Baldwin goes to the radio station where he works and says, "We really want you to come to the trial." And in just this really great short little monologue, Bill Cobbs gives this speech about how much he loved his brother, about how much he cared about him. And I didn't go to the first two trials, and I'm not going to go to this trial. And people criticized me for that. They still criticize me for that. But I'll tell you what I told them. If I was ever in the same room with Byron D. LeBeckwith, as God is my witness, I would wrap my arms around that chicken neck of his and snap it clean in half, and ain't nobody going to be able to stop me. And it was just a fucking great scene. And that Bill Cobbs got no credit really for this movie, and he's a great character actor. He's been in a lot, but I think that is just a perfect scene. It was so well done and so well acted and so honest. Like, you felt it with him. Is this movie perfect? I don't believe any film is perfect, but I have a hard time finding fault with this movie. If there again, no film is perfect. There's always a performance that's a little off or a moment that doesn't quite click. But I'm going to be real honest here. With this one, I either don't notice them, and I've seen this movie a lot. I either don't notice them, or they're so insignificant that they don't matter. I don't know, I guess maybe you could say that some of the other Southerners are played a little bit too stereotypically. They're a little too, the accent. First of all, the accents are a bit over the top from most of the characters. And some of the characters are a little bit too, he was trying to ruin our way of life, Bobby. That's his mother talking. Now, the reason I hesitate to even bring that up as an imperfection is because I hate to say this, folks. I'm not trying to be mean-spirited here. I live in the South. That is not uncommon. I am ashamed and sad to say that is not an uncommon thought. So I could say that some of their performances were a bit over the top, but at the same time, I'm like, not as much as you might hope. So I don't know. I know the film, again, the film at the time, there was criticism of the film in that it is telling, as I mentioned, is telling the story of a civil rights leader gunned down by a Klansman. And again, the point of view of the film was coming from Alec Baldwin and not from Whoopi Goldberg, so it brought criticism for that. But believe it or not, it also brought criticism because it was directed by Rob Reiner. Not because they had anything against Rob Reiner, but because it was a white guy directing it. And I find that, I don't know, I find that counterproductive. Because what that says, and I don't even know who was bringing this up, I just remember a couple of vague newscasts about it at the time. What that says to me is you're saying that a white person we can never truly understand, but you're saying we can't tell the story. We can't empathize enough to tell the story. That's to me. And again, that was then. I don't know if anybody has that problem with it now. And I'm coming at this from a white man's point of view. So again, I cannot understand just from a point of view standpoint. I can never fully appreciate or understand an African-American point of view on that subject because I don't have the frame of reference. Again, speaking from only one site. I can understand the argument, but here's the thing I kind of look at it as. I look at it in the same way people debate, did Shakespeare write his plays? You can have fun with the conspiracy theories of whether Shakespeare wrote his plays or not. But from my point of view, it doesn't matter who wrote the plays. We have them. We have the work. And I kind of feel that way about this movie. I don't really care. And again, considering how few African-American directors there are, and then even fewer, I can totally understand the argument and the displeasure at the fact that an African-American director was not telling an African-American story. I do understand that. But at the same time, I'm grateful that we have the movie. That it was directed by a good director. Rob Reiner is a very good director. And he directed this one beautifully. And I am really happy that we have this movie, because if we didn't have this movie, I never would have known any of this. I wouldn't have known this man's story. I wouldn't have known not only just the story of how they brought his killer to justice, I wouldn't have known the story of him, like what he was doing at the time. I wouldn't have known the story of his wife, who is an incredibly fascinating human being and an incredibly powerful human being. Like I said, she's the reason the case even was still alive. She pursued it for over 20 some years. And if this movie hadn't happened, I wouldn't have known anything about her. And how much poorer my life would be without that information, without that frame of reference. So, I'm really happy we have this movie. I want more people to see this movie and to think about some of these things that the movie brings up, not just in terms of the injustices that are still being done, but in terms of just how heinous those injustices are and continue to be. And that you can't just become complacent with them and go, well, that's just how the world is. You can't do that, because then nothing ever. That's how sick fucks like that guy got away with it for so long. It's just by going, oh well, that's the way it is. So yeah, this is a really great movie, and I encourage you, in this time of people protesting, go watch a movie about a group of real heroes. People who paid the ultimate price for trying to do the right thing. And then tell me that your need to get a motherfucking haircut in any way, shape, or form gives you the right to do anything but get down on your hands and knees and kiss these people's feet. Again, getting off of my soapbox. Gonna get off the soapbox now. That's a little bit more rage-filled than Drive Home Reviews Forgotten Gems usually gets. But sometimes it needs to be said. All right. But an important movie. Check it out. I don't think that you will regret it. All right. So thanks for joining me, running a little long. Let's wrap this up. keep calm and carry on. And as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.